You are listening to Something Rather Than Nothing. Creator and host, Ken Vellante. Editor and producer, Peter Bauer.
This is Ken Vellante from the Something Rather Than Nothing podcast, and very excited to have Holly from Wildness by Design, artist from coastal Oregon. Holly, welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's really a pleasure to be able to chat with you and folks and listeners. I encountered Holly on the coast of Oregon and was really just enchanted by her art pieces. And just to give you everybody a little sense of the categories when you go onto her website that you can find, we got combat cats, oceanic commentary, passionate poultry, perfectly absurd, posh predators, pigs in a blanket, and those are the categories that, Holly, you have for us. I'm thrilled and intrigued right off the bat. One thing, Holly, though, I wanted to know a little bit of your background and like when you were born. Were you an artist when you were born? Is that where you came from?
Well, so that is quite a loaded question, and you know what? It requires quite a bit of introspection, which is actually not something I'm very well known for. So was I born an artist? In truth, I do not think that I was. Now, I was born with a creative aptitude. When I was young, I not only did I do art, but I was also an avid builder, which still follows through today. I do a lot of construction as well. But I happen, I think, to be one of the lucky children in the world whose parents were very, very supportive and wanted us to explore as much as possible all of our skill sets. So art was one of the big ones that my mom and dad nurtured. So I think I was pretty lucky. I didn't get the whole pass off. My parents saved a lot of my artwork, much to my chagrin. Because looking back through some of the stuff you did when you were 6, yikes. But I don't know necessarily I was born an artist, but I know that I was born with the innate desire to create, and it came out in quite a few different avenues, art just being one.
Yeah, I love that. And Holly, I mentioned early on, I met you over at the coast, and you had your art there, and I adore the coast, and I always find that anytime that I'm there, and I try to go there as much as possible to be a kind of a magical place and very connected in my head to art. What does for you, and do you share some of those identifications with the coast and being an artist by the coast? Is that part of how you think?
Well, I can certainly say that it has shaped my entire life. You see, my whole family moved here when I was 3.5 years old. I'm 30 now. So I've been on the coast. Oh, geez, I'm real bad at math on the spot. Over 26 years. We'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Yes, it has shaped me as an artist, but also just me as a person. There is a reason why I chose the name for my business, Wildness by Design. I was quite fortunate to live such a secluded life. I mean, my parents had 13 acres here. They still have it, 13 acres here on the coast, and it butts up to hundreds of acres of national forest. So, and to say that our that our population is pretty small is very accurate. You have to drive very, very far to get to the nearest Home Depot, I think is almost 2 hours away. So yes, that calm, that peace, that beautiful silence, that's been a huge part of being able to create art, especially for me anyways.
Yeah, and I really think, like I said, for when I chat about the coast and chat with artists about it, I just like the fantastical, and of course that's heavily present in the work that you do, which kind of has this kind of shape shifting of animals within what we'd say human roles in kind of these odd juxtapositions. I read on your website that you kind of moved towards a revelation of like what you wanted to do or what really excited you, that kind of weird connection. uh so
Yes.
what happened there? I love that story, but can you talk a little bit more about how that kind of changed how you approached art and what you wanted to do with it?
Yes, yes. Well, I'll go a little more in depth even than what I wrote about, which was basically the origin story of the what you had mentioned, Perfectly Absurd, Oceanic Commentary, that whole series of art. That's not something that I've been doing my whole life. That series. This has been the last 7 years of my life, but it all started with an exhibition that I kind of was begrudgingly talked into by my younger sister. She had owned an art gallery in Seal Rock, which is not too far from our hometown, Waldport.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, Seal Rock,
Yeah,
lovely.
yeah. And she really, really wanted to put on an ocean-themed exhibition. And truly and honestly, I had never done any nautical art before this exhibition. It was something I found too repetitive, monotonous, and it's been done 1,000 times, especially on the coast. But I did. I agreed to help her out. At the time, I was designing rock albums. I was in competitions, so my stuff was very out there and Salvador Dali-ish. Certainly not what I'm doing now, but well, in any case, I agreed, thinking I could come up with something simple and sufficient, if you will. Oh boy, was I wrong. The nautical theme was my kryptonite, as it turned out. I couldn't think of anything. 3 weeks before her exhibition was supposed to be aired to the public, I still had nothing but 5 sheets of blank paper, um, which is distressing
Scary.
for anybody.
Just scary and distressing, yes.
Oh, it was actually, yes, it was pretty terrible. So I was sitting in my studio, and that night my husband came home and he brought me my absolute favorite bottle of scotch, Lefroy. It's a very, very intensely flavored scotch. You either love it or hate it, which is often the theme in my life. But in any case, he brought it home, and he'd seen how stressed I had been about not having anything there, and I'm promising that there should be, there would be something there. So I cracked open the bottle. I put on one of my favorite films, which is Casablanca. I was very fortunate as a kid. My dad made us watch a lot of those old movies, including Three Stooges, Casablanca, things like that. But in any case, I put that on because I just felt like I needed a different perspective. And so I put that on in my studio. I have a TV in my studio because I love to watch movies when I'm creating. So I'm having a drink and I'm watching Casablanca, and right next to my television, my sea creature reference book is open, and it's on a pufferfish. And I'm watching the movie and I'm looking at the pufferfish. I go back to the movie, back to the pufferfish, and suddenly it was just kind of a eureka moment, if you will. I wanted to bring
Yeah.
together the style, the class, the time era, the history with the sea creatures. So that was actually, Puffing Fish was my very first one of the series, and I did it that night. I just slammed the whole thing out. It was definitely an all-nighter, but
I
it kind
love
of,
that. I remember having a puffer fish. They're so distinct, and you can
well,
see
to
the
be
face
honest,
now. Yeah.
they are such a difficult subject matter to do in black and white. It's hard to get all the detail. But so it nearly broke me, but it was such a challenge that, well, frankly, after the first 5, I just simply never stopped. So flash forward, here we are 7 years later, and it's a full series, and it branched out into other things. I became delighted with the expressions of cats and other creatures. I mean, obviously animals have such a wide range for emotional expression, and it was quite the it was quite the revelation for me because I had always said I would never, ever, ever do nautical art.
Well, and I like that you are on the, being on the wavelength, the eccentric animal wavelength. I ended up where I could notice that, and ended up where I'm chatting with you. So I appreciate you moving, you moving in that direction. When I saw your artwork, I'm not sure if you've heard of the German artist Michael Soa, from a little while back, but it was animals kind of in human situations of like jumping into swimming pools, and pigs that looked like they were cars turning a corner, that kind of wildness. That it,
That
it,
sounds
it
lovely.
definitely.
I bet you I would recognize it if I saw it.
Yeah, I really love that. Hey, I wanted to ask you. I heard you mention, if you wanted to mention a little bit more, the rock posters. So what was that like for you? Were you doing that for groups, and what was that kind of adventure and art for you like?
Oh, gotcha. Well, to be honest, my earlier artwork, preteen, tween, all the way up until like 17, was very, 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 what's the word? Dark, maybe? Gothic? So that was what I was doing before all of this, oceanic commentary came about. And it had always been on my bucket list to design a cover for a rock artist, as I am a hardcore rocker myself. So,
Yeah, right.
um, so what I was doing at the time was there's quite a few wonderful sites, and I'm blanking on the names right now. But you can so big time bands and artists, musicians, they will put out a call for artists. Like Sublime, for instance, that was one of the competitions I entered into. So they offer a cash prize, but and then first place gets this amount, second place gets this, third gets that. But the big thing was that they would use your art for their cover, and so that's at the time what I was really focusing my creative energy on, and it's
Sure.
certainly different from what I'm doing now, and I feel like what I'm doing now is more true to my whole person, not just one side. I was a diehard punk in high school, the chains, the spikes, everything. So, but that's just one
Yeah.
facet of who I am. And the series I'm doing now is all of me, especially the comedy. That was the part that was missing with the
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah. Well, I find that can be in talking to artists, that it can be a real difficult process, because you tend to be multivaried, and humans tend to be multivaried and present different parts. And it's nice to be recognized when you do things in a certain category, but artists change like everybody else, and change maybe in most of the time more rapidly in a certain sense. So it's just allowing for you and artists in general to be the different manifestations of yourselves, rather than just this. And I think that's a strong tension for artists when I've talked to them. Do you find that to be the case, and mentioning that, doing different
I
jags in
mean,
your career? Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I would agree with that 100%. But the other thing about it is, it's easy to get stuck, I think. That's why they say writer's block, artist depression, there's a lot of terms for it, when you become stuck. And there's a lovely quote, I can't remember who it's from, but without change and growth, there is stagnation. And that is what happened to me before I before really I agreed to something I didn't really want to do, but it opened up a whole nother world for me within my own world. So yeah, stagnation is an easy place to get stuck when you are creative, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. What so I wanted to dig in on the conceptual, and obviously we talk a lot about art, and we've used that term in this conversation, but I'm always fascinated by what creative folks and artists like yourself, what you believe art is. So the question is, what is art?
Oh boy. That is a question that I honestly struggle with quite a bit. Now, of course, there's the dictionary definition of art, and there's the current social definition of art. I suppose what I want to ask you is, in what sphere do you mean that question? Do you mean what is art to me personally?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. I always like to ask it is what is art? And I think it allows for two things to be said, at least when I've heard it. One would be you can engage into kind of like an objective discussion about, an artwork should have this criteria and this criteria and be this way,
Okay.
and try to create that kind of that logical argument. But I think with art, to answer, the context of what you're asking, I think it is that personal component that, and when you see something, and you're like, oh, look at that art piece, and you know it in your heart, and you know it to be true, end up asking the question is, what is art? For you, when you see something, you're like, oh, that art piece is the most beautiful thing I've seen. What is
Okay.
it that makes that so? Yeah.
Gotcha. So we're going with the combination of both, which is honestly, I'm sure how it is for most people anyways. I will say this. I am probably, I haven't met too many artists that are so black and white. Ha ha ha. Not only just because I do black and white, but
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of gray area with my definitions of things. I tend to be a little more on the critical side of examining art. I think for me personally, it does drive me a bit nuts. There's a difference between being creative and being an artist, at least for me. Being creative can, as I've seen in some museums, they stick a red thumbtack on the wall, and suddenly that is a piece of art because it represents the struggle of women in Uganda or something. I don't think that that is art. There's no skill involved. There's a concept that is lovely that could be expanded on, but I don't find that to be art. For me, art needs to have an element of expertise. It needs to have some form of a technical skill that also complements the concept. What that is totally different and unique to each person. I've seen some abstract art that the person standing next to me is like almost in tears, and I don't understand it, but that's not for me to understand. What I do see, though, is wonderfully applied skill, use of color, even the shapes that they use. But I've also seen the opposite, where someone just threw paint on a canvas and it just it just doesn't look like it was well thought out at all. So for me, the technical skill has to also expand on whatever the concept may be, and it can be very simple. I mean, mine are arguably, in my opinion, quite simple. I do a lot of comedy. I feel that comedy is definitely the focal point of my stuff. So, I mean, simplicity is fine. There just needs to be some skill, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I like the piece you were talking about, the comedy, and I'd see it when I was looking at your work. I would see it in the terms of comedy. I would also see it as the trickster, right? Like
Yes, yeah.
there's this quick trick you played on folks, and it takes them a couple seconds to catch up and be like, oh, so it's that trickster element, the jokes and the comedy. I love that because it's a particular way of, just grabbing attention. I wanted to ask a follow up question, Holly.
Sure.
Just your basic thoughts on the role of art, given you as you described it. Uh, what do you think?
Yes.
The question is like where humans are really connected, really lose their minds over art. Like I've done 150 plus podcasts about like these questions about art, but what is the role of it? What is the role of art for us humans? Like, what is it doing for us that's so special?
Well, that is a really good question, and it is also attached to me in any case, to your previous one. What is art? So that technical end of things and then a concept. Well, that's important. But in your concept for art, there's also there's a vein of truth specific to the artist, almost like a snapshot, not just of that person, but also of the time. I mean, there is quite a reason we have classes titled art history. It's not just about the technical skill and the concepts. It's also, to me anyways, a mirror or a reflection of a time in history. And then underneath that, more specifically, a reflection of the person creating. Sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can't. It's more subtle, and obviously art speaks to everybody differently. Some people, when I look at certain pieces of art, I can't quite really see the truth of that artist. But for some, that's all I see. So what is the role of art? Well, not only, it's really multi-layered, at least for me. Not only is it a glimpse into a perfect stranger that you might not ever meet. Sometimes you never meet the artist. So there's that. And then it is also, to me, a reflection of that particular time in history, which is very special to me. History is, while it's certainly not all good and it's not all bad, it is a very important part of the future. So to me, the role of art is, it's almost like a mirror. You get to hold that up and take a very good, hard look, not just at yourself, but even the person who's making it. And that's special, I think.
Yeah. And I like the challenge, the challenge that can be, that can be within the art. I heard you say one piece I liked about what you said, which is, there's components of an emotional response to an artwork, but you mentioned the word truth, that you find some truth within it there. And I think it's always fun to kind of think about that. It's that immediacy or truth in what's being displayed that causes that reaction. I wanted to know, another question. I got two more big ones for you, Holly. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context. That's only fair with some of these. But the one of the questions I wanted to ask you was, as far as influence, and this influence question, who or what made you who you are, like in your life? I mean, is there certain people, certain place, certain things, an album, a song, that really make you who you are?
Oh, goodness. Oh, this is the most internal observation I've had to do. Okay. I would say, so you actually got to see my art in person. Well, at least the prints. But the black and white is done in charcoal, which is, I'm sure, as you know, or maybe you don't, charcoal is the oldest. Charcoal. Yeah. Me too. It is phenomenal. But it is also the oldest form, or rather, I should say, the oldest tool that humankind has had to communicate. Cave paintings, all of those are done in charcoal. The very first ability to write and anything, other than carving into stone, charcoal is the very first tool that humans had to communicate and to express themselves. So charcoal, not only is it wonderful medium to work in, but it's also a very ancient one. My love of charcoal started when I turned 14. I took a basic figure drawing class in high school. It was an elective. But my teacher, Mr. Wiesner, who was quite the character, big handlebar mustache, tiny little round, like very round glasses, and extreme, like a ponytail that went all the way down past his back. He's kind of an enigma to me. But he had extremely high expectations for all of his students. No matter who you were, what your skill level was, you were going to be held at the same standard. And Mr. Wiesner was a very old school art teacher. We were not allowed to use a pencil. we used instead sticks of charcoal. So we sat there in that class. We weren't allowed to talk. We were only allowed to replicate the images that he gave us, and that's what we spent a whole hour doing. Granted, it was difficult for most high schoolers, although I will say if you misbehaved, you got a dry chalkboard eraser beamed at you across the class. So
okay, yeah, there's that too.
Yep, everyone caught on real quick. But it was the first time I spent so much time with this particular medium, and he really made you rise to the occasion. Didn't matter what we were sketching. You really wanted to at least have him not say, "Nope, that's terrible. Do it again." You wanted just him to just walk by and say nothing, because that was the best compliment you could get from him. So he was a huge part of my charcoal fascination. Interesting character, still around to this day. I ran into him not too long ago. Oh my. But yeah, so Mr. Wiesner, huge part of my life. As far as the art goes. As far as everything else, definitely my younger sister. She's the one who pushes me outside of my safe, comfortable, creative boundaries. After all, she is the one that kind of pushed me into the whole, nautical theme, but that turned into something amazing. And ever since we were young, she's always really done that for me. So we're kind of opposites, actually. So definitely my sister.
I love that. And too, I think with the turn that you talked about with being pushed into the area that was, deeply frustrating for you that led to something else. It's just that odd combination that you don't know where it's going to lead to, and sometimes being around the right people, including your sister, get you in that spot. And even though it doesn't seem so initially, I think that's really special. Big question, and then I want you to do some self-promotion, Holly. So the big question, is the title of the show, of course, and it's another. I mean, you're talking about you have to handle a lot of introspection and conceptual questions, but
oh boy, here it comes.
The title of the show is is why is there something rather than nothing? And I accept all answers, pleasing, profound, whatever, amusing, but that's the question. Why is there something rather than nothing, Holly?
Well, you might not like my answer because it is a little bit simple, but I would say that there is something rather than nothing because nothing cannot exist without the complete total opposite, something. I feel that we are fortunate, all of us critters here, all of us living critters anyways, to be a part of and existing in the something, because I'm quite certain that beyond that beautiful blue sky, I don't know if there is anything else. I mean, we know that there's the planets, the universe, but that blackness that we see up there, maybe even the black holes, there is a nothing somewhere. I just for one feel grateful that I'm existing in the something. And you know what, Ken? Maybe that's why so many of us create. Now, obviously not all of us are in the creative industry, art or music or poetry, but even having children, you're creating. It must be because, without doubt, deep down, we all know that somewhere there is potentially nothing, and we're quite fortunate to live in the something.
I really love your answer there, Holly, and I think in the expression of like the living, or the ability to live in something, or to be around something, or to do something, or to create something, I think that's a wonderful mystery, and it's pretty darn cool. So I appreciate you. Okay, Holly, tell the listeners, now that you handled the biggest question of them all, tell the listeners where to find your art, either in person or regionally or online, or where all your spots are. So lead us to your art, Holly.
Allow me to light the way. This is, just so everybody knows, this is my very, it's my second year of going public with all of my artwork. Before it's just been sitting inside of my garage doing nothing. So on that note, I would direct as many people to the website as possible. It's just the www.wildnessbydesign.com. I am very active on the website because I am not very active or good at the social media. I have somebody helping me with that, thankfully, because as you know, as I've mentioned before, I am completely technology illiterate. So definitely the website. And then of course, in person, Walport's my home. I will be doing the farmers market probably from here on out. That's in Walport every Wednesday during the summer months. And I'm also popping up in local events surrounding areas. Toledo, I do the Art, Oyster, and Beer Festival. Looking into the Seafood and Wine Festival, which is a hugely popular event here on the coast. Wine, food, art does not get better than that.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to hear about you in that beautiful area on the Oregon coast, and just to hear about like just the way you come about your art and the different things you've worked on. I've really enjoyed getting the chat with you, Holly, and everybody. Make sure you check out that website, Wildness by Design. A lot of just really fun things that'll make you smile, and so just some great image and great artwork. So check Holly out. And Holly, just wanted to thank you so much for jumping on to the podcast, and just wanted to thank you for the things you create, and hope I get to run into you soon and chat some more about art.
Well, sounds wonderful, and thank you for having me. I was really excited about this. You ask phenomenally good questions that I admittedly even just well, anyways, they're loaded questions. There's a lot going on there.
No, and it's fun. I'm glad that you say that too. I think a lot of times, being asked large or interesting questions is a good exercise away from some of the mundane. So with that in mind, that's where I'm placing my bets. So thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much, Holly, and hope to chat again soon.
Indeed. Thank you.
This is Something Rather Than Nothing.